Hello, students, and welcome to another 6th grade math episode with me, your host, Mr. Nerlich. So today we're going to be working with whole number division. And normally I like to start out a lesson with some vocabulary, but we've already discussed a lot of the division vocabulary in previous videos. However, I will bring them up at the end of the video because those vocabulary words are still very important. So, how do you divide multi-digit whole numbers? Well, to look at that, let's start off with an example. Okay, our example is 3,750 divided by 25. So first we will ask ourselves, how many times does 25 fit into 3? And the answer is 0 times, so we put a 0 on top. Now, at this point, if you know that 25 fits into 3 0 times, you can automatically move on to the next digit in your number and go right into how many times does 25 go into 37 without going over. However, a lot of times students will make the mistake and they will not put the number in the right spot. So for those of you that are still figuring out division or struggle with it, you can always start with the 0 there. It doesn't hurt anything. It's just a placeholder so that your numbers stay lined up. Okay, so again, how many times does 25 fit into 3? 0 times. How many times does 25 fit into 37 without going over? 1 time. Then I multiply 1 times 25, which is 25, and I subtract 37 minus 25, and I get 12. Bring down, so I'm going to bring down my 5. Okay. And then I ask myself, how many times does 25 fit into 125? Just 5 times. I subtract, it's 0. Because 125 minus 125 is 0. And then I bring down the other 0. And I ask, how many times does 25 fit into 0? 0 times. Okay. Place the final 0 at the top, and my answer is 150. Now, you should always check your answer with multiplication. Always, because this is a good way to check if you did your division correctly. So off to the side on your notes, you see I did multiply 150 times 25, and I got 3,750, so it checks. Okay, let's look at example number 2. Now, another way to do long division, or another strategy, is to list the multiples of whatever is your divisor, and that will help you to see kind of like how far I have to go down and how many that is in order to put the number on top. So let's just look at an example. It'll make more sense as I get to the example. So we have 9,317, and if I divide that by 95. Okay, so down the left-hand side, kind of off to the side, I want to list the multiples of 95. And you might ask why. Well, okay, this is because, so I'll put little 1 and 2 in parentheses so I kind of know how far I'm going. And you only need to go, 9 is as far as you're ever going to go because we are in base 10 for our number system, which means that just means that 9 is the highest we can go and 10 means we have to regroup. So we can only put single digits in each place value on top, that means I can only go down to the ninth multiple. All right, so I have 95, 190, 285, 380 is one of your blanks. And then we have 475, 570 is your other blank. And then we have 665. And then we have 760 and 855. Okay. So, because we've asked ourselves, we'll ask ourselves, how many times does 95 fit into 9? 0. How many times does it fit into 93? 0. So, we kind of skipped that process of putting a bunch of zeros. And now we can just say, okay, how many times does 95 fit into 931 without going over? And I look for 931 and I say, okay, I'm getting closer. Okay, 855 is as close as I'm going to get. So I put a 9 on top. I subtract. 11 minus 5 is 6. Now I need to make this 9 and 8, and this becomes a 12. 12 minus 5 is 7, and then 8 minus 8 is 0, so we don't have to put that. If you want to, you can. Then I bring down the 7, and I ask myself again, how many times does 95 now fit into 767? So I go down my list, and I say, oh, 855 is too much. So then I have to stop at 760, which is 8 times. And I subtract. And I am left with remainder 7. Okay. Now, since we know fractions and everything, we can also write this as 98. And then the fraction will be 7 over 95 as a fraction. So you can always write your remainder as a fraction. Later in subsequent videos, when we divide decimals, you will have to get a decimal versus a remainder for this answer, but that's for another video on another day. So when we come to that, we'll worry about it then. Another way to check to see if your answer makes sense or is kind of like in the realm of possibility is to say, let's estimate to see if my answer makes sense. Okay, so I'm going to estimate, and I'm going to say, well, my answer makes sense. And then I'm going to estimate and say, well, 9,000 divided by 100 equals 90. So yes, my answer does make sense. Okay? So now I just, when you're rounding, you want to kind of round most of the times like similar place values and whatnot. For this one, I just did it simple because I knew that 95 would round to 100, and that if I rounded 9,317 to the nearest thousand, it was 9,000, and this made a nice, easy number. Now, 90 is not super close to 98, but it's close enough. It's, I didn't get a number of 900 when I estimated my answer, and then I got 98 over here, then I know something's not right. Okay, so your estimate is just to make sure you're in the ballpark, you're close, and you're not way off in left field when you're supposed to be at the pitcher's mound. Here's a sports reference for you. Okay, let's look at example number 3. For this one, pardon my reach while I switch out papers here. So this one, we're going to use an acronym to help divide. So we're going to use an acronym to help divide. So example 3. Okay, and so this problem is 98,464 divided by 362. Okay, and then we already know our answer is 272. All right, and so we're going to fill in some blanks, but we already know most of the numbers. We already know the answer. So, but what's important is we need to find what is this acronym. So the acronym is DMSCB. Does McDonald's sell cheese burgers? Okay. Does McDonald's sell cheeseburgers? Divide, multiply, subtract, check our answer, bring down, and repeat. All right, so let's look at the problem. So far I said that 362 goes into 984 two times, and that would give me 724. So I subtract, I have 0, 6, 260. 260 is less than 362. So the division part is how many times does 362 fit into this number you're trying to divide into? I said 2 times, so I then multiply 362 times 2, and I got 724. Then I subtracted. Then I'm at cheese, so I check, and I say, is 260 less than 362? If the answer is yes, you move on. And now my burger, and I bring down my 6. Then I ask myself, okay, again, does. How many times does 362 fit into 2,606? Well, the answer is 7. And that is 2,534. Now, granted, I did a lot of this work ahead of time, but if you're not sure, 362, you want to guess 7, so you guess 7, 14, carry the 1, 7 times 6 is 42, plus 1 is 43, carry the 4, 7 times 3 is 21, plus 4 is 25, carry my 2. Okay, now maybe you didn't know it was 7. So then maybe you tried 6 or 5 first or 8. You're not sure. It's okay. I happened to do it ahead of time, so I knew it was 7. Also, that example before where we made multiples. With this one, 362 may be kind of hard to write multiples for 362. So to save you some time, it might be better to do just guess and check on this method. It's totally up to you which way you want to do it, but whatever helps you the best, that's the way we suggest you do it. All right, so now we're going to subtract. So we're going to subtract. Okay, I thought my camera wasn't working. Sorry about that. All right, so now we're going to subtract. Okay, and when I subtract, I'm going to get, well, let's see, 2, borrow, makes a 5, makes this a 10. 10 minus 3 is 7. 5 minus 5 is 0. And what do you know? And then a 0 again. So really, I only have 72. All right, so I have 72. Then I bring down my 4. So I have 724. Oh, look. I know I used 724 before, and I know that was 2 times, so it must be 2 again, which gets me 724, and I get 0. And again, I keep checking. 72 was less than, so I'm good. 0 is less than. I ran out of digits. I'm done. The answer is 0. And then down here, the answer is 272. Now, as far as some of your notes on the side, it says divide. How many times does my number fit into the larger number? Okay, so my number, but we really don't want to say number because we know what this is. If you remember, that's called, so instead of number, we want to really say how many times does my divisor. That's what we really want to use, okay? So number, yeah, my number, but we don't really know what that means, my number. My divisor, though, we know that's that, okay? Fit into the larger number, which is obviously that's the larger number. Okay, check. So under check says, is my difference less than my divisor? If it's less than the divisor, keep going. If not, recheck your work. So if you ever get a number, let's say this 72 ended up being like 372, then I clearly didn't make this digit high enough, okay? That means my divisor could fit in another time or maybe 2 more times. So I clearly made a mistake. Go back and recheck your work because you will get it wrong. Then bring down. Bring down the next digit in the problem down to continue dividing. Okay. Now let's look at some key vocabulary words because a math lesson wouldn't be complete without Mr. Nerlich here giving you boring old vocabulary. But the good thing about vocabulary is once you start to use it over and over again and start speaking in mathematical terminology, you tend to stop speaking in non-mathematical terms and you tend to keep speaking in mathematical terms. So the more as teachers we use these words, the more it becomes a part of our everyday life. And when I explain division in general, I say dividend, divisor, quotient, etc., because that's just how I know it now. I don't say the number on the outside, the number under the bracket, the number on top. Those aren't in my vocabulary anymore because I've gotten rid of it and replaced it with the vocabulary word that's appropriate for the grade level you're in. All right, so the first one is dividend. And again, the dividend is the number being divided. So it's the number being divided. All right, then you have your divisor. And the divisor is the number by which a number is divided. And then we have the quotient. And if you hear any random noises throughout the video, it's probably my 3-month-old kitten who's causing trouble. Right here. He's adorable. His name is Baldwin. He's 3 months old as of 2 days ago, and he doesn't know any better that I'm trying to record videos. So just pardon his noise if he makes any. Okay, so quotient. Sorry about that. The quotient is the answer to a division problem. All right, so those are your vocabulary words. You've heard them before, but just a refresher. Dividend, the number being divided. Divisor, the number by which a number is divided. And quotient, the answer to a division problem. Well, you have some on your paper to try on your own, so good luck and keep soaring, Falcons. We'll see you next time.